My parents threw me out at 18 with nothing. Now they're homeless, begging for help, and I shut them out. I'm 29 male and never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. My parents showed up at my house last week, broke and desperate. They wanted to move in with me after losing their home in a lawsuit. I laughed right in their faces and slammed the door. It wasn't just the satisfaction of saying no to people who had tossed me out at 18 without a second thought. It was the years of resentment that built up, brick by brick, after they turned their backs on me when I needed them the most. Let me back up a bit. When I was 18, my parents, who had always been a bit controlling, decided they were done with me. Graduation had barely passed when they sat me down for what I thought was going to be a talk about my future. Instead, my dad leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and said, "You're an adult now. Time to figure things out on your own." I stared at him, not really understanding what he meant. "What are you saying?" My mom, always the more calculating one, chimed in, "We've given you everything for 18 years. Now it's time for you to stand on your own. We think it's best for you to move out." Just like that. No warning, no discussion. I was being kicked out. They weren't abusive, but they sure as hell weren't loving either. Everything was transactional with them. My dad always complained about how much I cost, and my mom treated me like an obligation more than anything else. But I don't have a job lined up yet. I just graduated, I said, feeling a lump form in my throat. How am I supposed to pay for college or rent? "That's your problem now," my dad said, shrugging like it wasn't a big deal. "You'll figure it out. It's called responsibility." I didn't know what to say. It felt like a sucker punch. I thought parents were supposed to help their kids, especially when they were starting out. But for mine, I was just a leech they couldn't wait to get rid of. They gave me a month to pack up and leave, and that was that. I spent that month scrambling. I worked at a grocery store part-time, but there was no way that was enough to pay for rent. I applied for loans, picked up extra shifts, and started cutting corners wherever I could. I found a tiny, rundown studio apartment across town. Barely affordable, but it was better than being homeless. And let me tell you, those years were rough. I juggled school and work, lived off ramen, and tried to stay afloat. They didn't call, they didn't care. I had to figure everything out on my own, and I did. I made it through college barely, but I made it. I got a decent job in tech, saved up for a few years, and eventually bought my own place. A modest house, but it was mine. And the best part? I did it without their help. Fast forward to a few months ago, and I get this call from my aunt. She's one of the few family members I still talk to. She tells me my parents have lost their house in some lawsuit. Apparently, my dad got involved in some shady business deal, thinking he could make a quick buck. It backfired. Hard. They were sued for everything and lost. The house, the cars, the savings. Gone. Are you going to help them? My aunt asked, hesitantly, like she already knew what my answer would be. I laughed because the idea of me helping them was ridiculous. Help them? After what they did to me? "They're still your parents," she said, her voice wavering a little. "Yeah, and they didn't give a damn about me when I was struggling. They made their bed. Let them lie in it." I hung up after that, thinking that was the end of it. But then, last week, they showed up on my doorstep. It was a Saturday morning. I just finished making breakfast, feeling pretty good about life. When I heard a knock at the door, I wasn't expecting anyone, so I was surprised to see my parents standing there. My dad looked exhausted, bags under his eyes, and my mom, who had always prided herself on looking put together, looked like she hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," my dad said, his voice strained. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "About what?" "We lost the house," my mom blurted out, as if I didn't already know. "Yeah, I heard," I said, keeping my voice as casual as I could. "So?" My dad glanced at my mom before continuing. "We don't have anywhere to go. We've been staying with friends, but we need somewhere more permanent." I waited because I knew what was coming next. "We thought, maybe we could stay here with you, just until we get back on our feet," my mom added, her voice thin like she was choking on the words. And that's when I laughed. A deep, bitter laugh that came from years of holding back. "You gotta be kidding me." My dad's face tightened. He wasn't used to being the one asking for help, and it was killing him. We your parents, I. We raised you. You owe us. I raised an eyebrow. Owe you? You mean like how you threw me out at 18 with nothing? No help? No support? Is that the kind of what you're talking about? That was different. My mom cut in, her voice sharpening. We were trying to teach you responsibility. Responsibility? I repeated, shaking my head. You mean abandonment. You kicked me out because you didn't want to deal with me anymore. Now you want to move in here? After everything? We didn't have a choice. My dad snapped, the anger bubbling up. We couldn't afford to support you anymore. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You couldn't afford to support me? I was working my ass off just to survive while you two were living comfortably in your big house, driving your fancy cars. And now that you've lost it all, you come to me. My mom started to cry, though I could tell it was more out of desperation than actual sadness. Please, we don't have anywhere else to go. We'll be out on the street. I stared at them. These two people who had treated me like nothing more than an inconvenience for most of my life. They were standing there, begging me, but all I could feel was nothing. No sympathy, no guilt, just cold indifference. I'm sorry you're in this mess, I said, though my voice was flat, devoid of any real apology. But I'm not your backup plan. I built this life on my own, without your help, and I'm not about to let you swoop in and take advantage of it now. My dad clenched his fists, the anger rising again. You're just going to leave us homeless? After everything we did for you? Everything you did for me? I shot back. You mean like throwing me out when I wasn't ready? Leaving me to figure it all out on my own? Yeah, you really did a lot for me. You ungrateful little. My dad started, but I cut him off. I'm not ungrateful. I'm just done with you both. You made your choices, and now you're dealing with the consequences. Just like I had to deal with mine. They both stood there, stunned, like they couldn't believe their son was talking to them like this. But I wasn't that scared, desperate kid they'd thrown out all those years ago. I was a man who had built something from nothing, and they weren't going to guilt me into anything. My mom, still sniffling, tried one last time. Please, we don't have anyone else. You should have thought about that before you decided to cut me off, I said, stepping back into the doorway. Good luck. And with that, I closed the door right in their faces. I stood there for a moment, just staring at the closed door, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Relief, mostly. Satisfaction, definitely. Maybe a tiny bit of guilt, but not enough to matter. I had done what I needed to do. They had made their choices, and I had made mine. They tried calling after that, left voicemails, sent texts. My aunt even called, saying I should reconsider, that they were my parents, and I couldn't just leave them out in the cold. But I could, and I did. They didn't stop there, though. A few days later, they had the audacity to send me a letter through a lawyer, claiming I was legally obligated to take care of them because they were elderly and without means. I couldn't believe it. The sheer entitlement of these people. I called up my own lawyer, who assured me they didn't have a leg to stand on. Legally, they couldn't force me to do anything. I had a letter sent back, telling them that if they didn't stop harassing me, I'd file a restraining order. That shut them up real quick. I haven't heard from them since, and honestly, I'm fine with that. It's funny how life works sometimes. The same people who threw me out without a care in the world were now the ones needing help, and I was the one saying no. Karma's a brutal thing, and they were feeling it hard. After the lawyer letter, they finally stopped. No more calls, no more texts, no more desperate pleas from my aunt. Just silence. And honestly, that's exactly how I wanted. They made their choices, and now they're living with the consequences. I've built a life I'm proud of, without their help, and I'm not going to sacrifice my peace to save people who never cared about mine. They taught me one thing, though, how to survive on my own. Now they're just a distant memory, and I'm better off for it. For anyone reading this, sometimes saying no is the best thing you can do. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.